All right, welcome to episode 8 of The Heroes You Deserve. My name is Henry.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Richard.
And this podcast, we're going to discuss Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So we all just watched the trailer right now, so that way we can refamiliarize ourselves with the trailer and the Star Wars universe. I guess right off the bat, how much of a Star Wars fan are you, Richard?
Woo! I'm a huge Star Wars fan. That's a great question.
Are you familiar with the expanded universe and the novels?
I'm not. I'm familiar with what they are, but I never read them. I strictly, canon, just the movies.
Just movies universe. Cinematic universe, I guess. Right?
Of course, the infamous Christmas special that aired in 1970.
Did you watch that?
I did watch that.
I have that.
The first appearance of Boba Fett.
I got it.
But yeah, I'm one of those guys that, was there, I saw all 3 of them originals at the theater.
Did you collect their toys when they first came out?
I had a few. I don't know if that collect is a strong word, but, I had a few.
Not like now, right?
No, let's not talk about that right now.
Paying attention.
That attention. But yeah, I was a big fan. And, when the prequels came out, I was, pretty disappointed. And I was really excited with episode 7, Force Awakens. So yeah, it's I'm a fan.
And we'll get there. We'll probably retread maybe the trilogies at each time just to kind of catch us up to date. Mm-hmm. Mike, so how much of a Star Wars fan are you? How familiar are you with the universe?
Pretty familiar. Expanded universe. Only what I've learned playing some of the games like Dark Forces.
Because some of the video games are canon, right, or no?
I don't know with the Disney buyout. I'm not sure what's canonical anymore. I know they got rid of a bunch of the expanded universe stuff, but they seem to be cherry picking certain items.
Right.
Some of the cooler ones. I don't think we're gonna see the actual Star Killer base or anything like that, or what was the ship called? Okay. Anyway, there was a ship that was supposed to be like Star Killer base, and we're not gonna see stuff like that.
Right. And as for me.
No Kyle Katarn. That's a pity.
Yeah, I didn't really watch the original trilogy until a couple of years ago. I had a couple of smattering of toys. I never bought the comic books. I never bought much of the toys. I didn't buy the novel. So I'm kind of like with Richard. I'm more familiar with the cinematic universe, 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3, and now with 7. So that I'm not too familiar with the droid numbers and the names and the characters and the vehicle names, because the diehard fans, they know every droid name and make and model and everything like that. So we're not that expert of the Star Wars. This is just our opinion. Maybe as a movie viewer, it seems like
this will be a casual fan's approach as opposed to the diehard Star Wars fan. Now we are like big Star Wars fans. Don't get us wrong, but we're not obsessive about it.
Yeah, and like Rogue One may be referencing, maybe like you said, cherry picking certain things, certain stories that have already come out. I'm unfamiliar with those stories. So for me, this is all brand new stuff. I have no frame of reference for any of this at all, other than the shot of the Death Star and some of the Star Destroyers.
All right, so
and the AT-ATs.
So then let's start there then. So the original trilogy, which would be 4, 5, and 6, how would you... what would you say about those? The original trilogy.
It's one of those conversations that I always wind up having. It's the same thing. When these things come out when you're young, you revere them. They're so special and they're so amazing. And we don't, I don't remember being young criticizing someone's acting ability or plot holes or anything like that. We were just watching the screen and just wow, that's awesome. Did they have acting problems? Of course they did. Did they have plot holes? All over the place. But it didn't matter. And they were just amazing movies. How dare you say anything negative about them? But, they had their flaws. But I loved them. I love I don't know how many times I've seen them. The original cut, the extended cut, the TV cut. I've probably seen every cut there is of episode 4.
Is there a circumcised cut version?
If there is, I would have stayed away from it.
Henry's Dorado, ladies and gentlemen.
So, okay, and as for me, I watched the recent 4, 5, and 6, again, only a couple of years ago, and I liked it. I did not watch it as a child. My familiarity with it is more of the toys because of the 80s. It was Star Wars, it was He-Man, it was G.I. Joe.
It was the 70s.
Right, but when I grew up, I think the toys kind of carried over into the 80s somewhat a little bit.
Well, yeah, Jedi came out in 83.
Right.
And Empire did come out in 80.
Right, so I'm more familiar with... I remember watching Return of the Jedi more so than the first two for sure. So that's kind of... I'm late in the game, but I do... When I've rewatched the original trilogy, I like it. Like you said, it's just kind of takes you back to your childhood innocence, really. Mike, what do you think about the original trilogy?
Well, it's the one. I was born late '70s, so I was a baby when these films came out. So my exposure to them was as VHS tapes. Us watching them on.
For the new viewers, what is a VHS tape exactly?
Oh yeah, for anyone born in 2000, back before DVD, there used to be giant cassettes. And if you don't know what a cassette is, that's another conversation. Look to Guardians of the Galaxy, the weird box that he had that kind of looked like an MP3 player but was way too big to actually be one.
That was a cassette tape.
That was a cassette. Yeah. So large cassettes went into a even larger player that would play your film, and then you would have to then rewind the tape before you sent it back to the video store.
Rewind.
Yeah, that's where that phrase came from.
Or they charge you a quarter.
Right.
They charge you a quarter or something, and my dad would make him crazy to pay that quarter. That was our ass. If we had to pay that quarter, that was our ass.
So since you're the youngest one, like you said, you watched them more at home than the theater.
Yeah,
right?
I never had the theater experience until they did the re-release, which was really cool, but they added a bunch of goofy shit that I knew it wasn't right. I mean, it was okay. I mean, it was exciting at the time.
Right. And again, you don't know what they added or what was
at the time.
At the time, you didn't know.
Yeah, well, no. I'd seen the original,
Sure.
the original cuts of the film, so I knew when they'd added stuff. I knew that the CGI Jabba the Hutt was definitely a CGI Jabba the Hutt. So there's no questions. The extended cantina scene also, there was no denying that was an extended scene. So yeah, I have a fondness for the films. I've always loved Empire and Jedi. New Hope was,
So
it's
you're
a good starting point.
You're like Jedi. You're more dark, the Force, or what? The Jedi's are the dark side.
Oh, where would I land?
Yeah.
I don't think I could be trusted with any kind of powers like that.
No.
It's a good thing I don't have any kind of powers. I could not be trusted with.
I think I'm more. I think I'm more dark side because I've been looking for love in Alderaan places.
Okay.
Jesus. Okay.
All right. So
Rogue One.
Right. So now let's go to the second trilogy, which would be Episode 1 and 2 and 3. So this was
we?
Yeah, we I think we have. This came out when did the Episode 1 come out?
I don't know.
2000s?
No, 98, 90. I don't know what it was.
So again, I mean,
No, this was in the 2000s for sure.
Everyone was a big fan of Star Wars, and everyone was really looking forward to the awesomeness of what Episode 1 should have brought. Mm-hmm. And again, I remember going to seeing Episode 1 at the theater for sure.
And how did you feel about it?
I was disappointed, and I'm sure a lot of us were. And I don't know if it's more a George Lucas thing or
I think it was
CGI, story. I mean, what? Did you see it in theater?
I think ultimately, yeah, I saw 3. I think it was the casting, like across the board. Other than Ewan McGregor, I think everybody just was out of place. There was way too much politics. There was way too much. There was just the focus on all the wrong things. It was not a very coherent story.
Too much politics. Too much trade federation. I mean,
it's like
less emphasis on the wars. I mean, it's Star Wars.
Stuff that really didn't matter, and people.
And then the rest of the film played like a Saturday morning cartoon where the total focus was just to move merchandise.
Yeah, that's
like, there's a shiny thing that I'm probably gonna want. That'll be cool in a video game.
Yeah.
Brett, Star Wars, I think if we remember the story correctly, George Lucas somehow managed the deal where he would get money out of the merchandising, I think,
that was the main thing he kept when he signed on with Fox. Yeah, Fox was distributing the movies, but he had the foresight to
think ahead
and say, you know what, I want all the licensing.
Sure, and I think maybe Episode 1, 2, and 3, I don't know, were maybe too focused on the merchandising properties, It was just not a very good story. And they had to throw in their version of Ewoks, which I think is a Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, I don't remember what they're called. Gungans or something.
Gungans, yeah.
So yeah, we'll just gloss
Right,
over.
well,
the
but
original
but
trilogy.
again, for the older fans like us, you know, since we grew up with the 4, 5, and 6, 1 and 2 and 3 were the disappointment. But for the kids growing up who've never seen Star Wars in the theater, or maybe even then, Star Wars kind of sort of faded out of the limelight, and this was their first exposure to Star Wars. So I think we should be at least be thankful to exposing kids to the Star Wars universe, right? I mean, do you not? I mean, as bad as it was, at least it kind of brought them into our world.
What?
No, you don't agree.
As a bridge, I suppose it was useful in that respect. But honestly, if you gave me the choice of having my first exposure to Star Wars being my dad showing me, the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy.
Right, but these kids didn't have a choice. I mean, they were just kind of following the hype that Episode 1 is going to be awesome. Star Wars is awesome. Let's go watch it in the trailer. And
most of them really like it.
yeah, exactly. If you ask those kids that grew up with that movie, they have no problems with that movie.
If I talk to my sister-in-law, and she's a junior in high school right now, she has no problem whatsoever with the prequel trilogy.
Right.
None of the complaints that we have are at all her complaints. If anything, same thing that we didn't like, she didn't, and that's Hayden Christensen 100%.
Right.
There's no redeeming quality in that actor at all. Not his portrayal, not the character of Anakin Skywalker. No one.
Pod races, no Darth Vader, no
sand getting in everything.
Right.
No.
It gets oh God. So even that she couldn't forgive, but by and large she liked the films.
Well, and I think that's she's just representative of the
Well,
fourth generation.
It's anecdotal, but yeah. I mean, and I see that in people her age that
Is it
are very forgiving with those films, whereas we feel like our childhood was somehow tainted by the very mere existence of these prequel trilogies.
Right, it all depends who they grew up with. My comparison is kind of like those familiar with Hal Jordan Green Lantern. We all know who Hal Jordan Green Lantern is, but the Justice League cartoon featured Jon Stewart. So the kids that grew up with the Justice League cartoon are more familiar with the black Jon Stewart Green Lantern than they are with Hal Jordan.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
All right. So now that we've discussed the first two trilogies, and we kind of let's move on to episode 7.
Mm-hmm.
So The Force Awakens. So I think did we all see that together or no?
Yeah, didn't we?
No, I don't think I was with you guys.
Oh,
Okay.
as
So
per usual.
what did you think of The Force Awakens?
I had no problem with The Force Awakens. And, going in expecting it just to not be the original trilogy. I'm sorry, not the original trilogy, but yeah, the prequel trilogies,
Sure,
knowing that Lucas wasn't attached
Right.
anymore, knowing that we had J.J. Abrams.
And I know a lot of people hate on Lucas, but I mean, he produced the original trilogy, but directed the second trilogy, correct?
He also directed episode 4.
Yeah, and then he passed the buck to Spielberg.
Episode 5 was Irving Kershner.
Right.
Yes. And Spielberg did
and
Jedi?
Jedi was Mark Wand. Something.
So was Spielberg a
He did the Indiana Jones. Spielberg and Lucas did Indiana Jones. He had nothing to do with Star Wars.
Well,
But it's okay.
see, we're
James
not Rabbit
Mark-
fans.
Yeah.
We're just, again, we
Yeah.
like them a lot, just not a whole lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So now, like you said, Lucas sold it to Disney, so he wasn't
Not
interfering.
attached,
Right,
so
not
we got
attached.
fresh eyes on
Right,
this
right,
project.
right.
So people that,
J.J. Abrams.
yeah, hopefully that were, that we hoped were equally passionate about the subject matter as we were, and would give it a fresh look, and hopefully write something that we could all really wrap our heads around. That wasn't, trying to sell us something, wasn't trying to move product other than the film itself. So we got new characters, got some old ones. Well, honestly, I guess you all must have seen it by now, and if you haven't, whatever we say next is on you. It's been quite a few months. So yeah, we got a good mixture of new characters and old. Yeah, there was a
Right.
big scene.
Sure.
I'm still reluctant to say it out loud because I feel
we'll,
like
we'll get there.
okay,
If it comes up.
So if it comes up organically, I won't just
Sure.
blurt it out. But yeah, so the action was good. The story was really good and compelling. You got this, stormtrooper who suddenly, came out of his training program
Develops
and
a conscience.
well decides that apparently his conditioning didn't take, or when faced with the reality of going through whatever training they go through as stormtroopers, or reconditioning, just decides, you know what, I can't, despite all my training and all the conditioning I've had, can't watch all of this carnage and participate in it. So he immediately goes off the rails, finds a way to escape, with Poe Dameron, in a hilarious scene where he's, says like, all right, you're breaking me out because you need a pilot. He's like, yeah, I need a pilot. So there was a what it is about him is his honesty. Even when he's totally lying, there's an honesty to it.
Well, at least it wasn't Poe judgment.
You're on fire today, man.
Oh.
You really are.
Richard.
It's all the pizza.
Sure.
Craft services was good to us today.
It was Magic Hat, right? It was Magic Hat.
Yes.
Richard, so what was your thoughts on The Force Awakens? And I want to touch upon, because there was some criticism of Force Awakens, but we'll touch on that a little bit.
I'm probably going to bring it up.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
It was fun. I did not hate it. Hate is a strong word. Okay, I wasn't disappointed like I was with the original trilogy. The acting was much better. The dialogue was much better. But there were some problems that I had with it. I mean, I didn't walk out going, "Oh my God, they did it again." I was like, "Okay, that's cool." I mean, it wasn't great, but it was cool. I mean, there was just some things,
Like
and
what?
I'm not even talking about like
Lens
the fact.
flares.
No, I'm not even talking about the fact that they essentially retold Episode 4.
Well,
I'm not going to talk about that
I
at
kind
all.
of agree with that.
Because to me, I thought, okay, that's a cool, like an homage. You just see the kind of
Too
this
much
kind
of
of
an
like,
homage for some people.
and that didn't bother me. There was just a lot of like inconsistencies. Like the first time I saw it, and a lot of times when I watch a movie like this, I will usually watch it more than once. The first time I have my initial reactions or whatever, but then I go back again and say, okay, well, maybe I missed something. Maybe I missed a reference. Now that I know where it's going, maybe I just missed something and I'll catch something else the second time around. There were just some things that just didn't ring true for me. Things toward the end, like how close was the Starkiller base to everything? Like it just seemed like everything was so close to it, and the interrogation with Rey and there was just things that were too convenient and kind of bugged me a little bit. But I mean, not enough for me to hate the movie. It was just, I saw them, my brain registered it as that's weird, but I kept going. Very much the way my brain did with the original trilogy. I mean, there were some things that were off or whatever, but you get caught up in the emotion, and JJ's really good at that. I'm a JJ Abrams fan. I'm probably one of the only people that can say I've liked. I wasn't a fan of Felicity, but I became a fan with Alias, the TV show, and then Lost, of course. And so I've always been a fan of his. I think he does great directing of actors. I think he probably is one of the best directors of getting something out of his actors. I think they all just do a really great job for him. And I think he's really good at developing excellent character moments, and there were a lot of them in the movie. It's just some of the plotting just seemed a bit off. But I mean, again, none of these things are perfect, no matter how dedicated a fan you are. I am a fan, and I recognize that it was really nice, a nice starting on point, and hopefully I'm just interested now that we're going into something that will not be an homage, I hope, to Empire Strikes Back.
Right, right. And it's kind of like
hoping.
Episode 1 for the next generation. I mean,
Right.
again, every trilogy is being exposed to a brand new generation, brand new set of eyes for kids or whatever.
But I did enjoy it.
And Richard, you touched on some people say there's a lot of too much homage to the original Star Wars.
There's a lot of it. The orphan in the sand. She finds a droid. Top secret information. They go to a cantina. They break out with a Millennium Falcon. They go to the cantina. They meet a little guy. I mean, I know it wasn't exactly like the Yoda, but you could very easily compare Maz Kanata to Yoda. They never explain how she has a lightsaber. There's things that just aren't explained that should be explained. And I understand why, because JJ is a master of the I don't know what he calls
mystery
it,
box,
mystery box,
mystery
right?
box.
And it works to a degree, and especially in a movie like this, then you start connecting dots on your own, and you start, it's fun to, to fan theory and try and figure out what the connection is and who her parents are, and I get all of that, and it's fun stuff. But from a storytelling perspective, it can be a bit jarring that all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, where did that come from? Or wait a minute, why? Or how could she fly the Millennium Falcon? Or how come she's so awesome at everything?
Right.
And so, little things like that.
A bit of a Mary Sue, correct?
A bit of a Mary Sue.
A little bit.
A bit of a Mary Sue.
Sure.
We'll talk about that, I guess. A nice little segue there. But yeah, I mean, it was enough of an homage that it was obvious to anybody.
Overt.
Yes,
Okay.
to anybody that had seen the original trilogy, for sure.
Mike, so do you agree with a bit of what Richard says? Do you think it was too much of a homage, or it just right to do it justice, or?
No, and as I said a moment ago, it was an overt homage. I mean, that's
You think it was
probably
too
the
much?
most polite way to call it that. I mean, it was biting on the original trilogy.
Almost shot for shot. And let's not forget,
Yeah.
just disengaging the shields from inside and having the X-wings coming in, and a lot of the stuff was pretty much same plot beats almost.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
I mean, to have had General Leia go and say, like, you know what, we got this. We've kind of done this kind of thing before. Would have just been the wiffle ball over the head, the wiffle bat over the head to tell you that, yeah, you are watching it again. But I also don't fault it. Because, as Henry mentioned,
it worked.
If this is yet another New Generation's New Hope, not the worst thing. I wish it wasn't nearly shot for shot remake of it, but I mean, I don't hate that either.
but it wasn't Phantom Menace.
No.
Yeah, so the bar was set so low. I think I'm just.
But to be fair, as much as Rey did turn out to be a Mary Sue type of character, I really liked her. Like, I think she was my favorite character in the entire movie.
All right, so explain what is a Mary Sue?
Well, it's just this concept of, it's typically associated with females, although there's a male version. I can't remember. It's Gary something.
Really?
Gary Stu.
Gary Stu, I think. It's just this notion of a badass character who just basically never does anything wrong. They're just good at everything. They never make mistakes. They're clutch at always the right moments. And Rey was a paragon of that, and I mean, even as people were coming out, it was like, how could she able to do this? And, it's very easy. It's very lazy to say, oh, well, it's the Force. Oh, she's strong with the Force. Luke was never that awesome. Maybe Anakin was, but they explained that as midichlorians, and then we suddenly forgot about that.
Yeah, we wouldn't even discuss
that. But I
that.
mean, I don't think we've ever seen a Skywalker, if in fact she is a Skywalker, to be as gifted as she is. It was a bit extreme.
If she is a Skywalker.
So it was a bit extreme, and it was a bit jarring. Like I said, those are the kind of things that you kind of sit back and you do have your suspension of disbelief as you're watching a movie, but then you go, wait a minute, come on. Really? I mean, she was flying the Millennium Falcon better than Han Solo ever did. Or dare I say Lando ever did. So yeah, I mean, that's what a Mary Sue character is, but I still liked her. I love the way Daisy really performed her. She had heart. You cared about her, and even though she was perfect, you still somehow thought she was in danger, sort of, or you still worried or cared or something. I don't know. It was weird,
right? And she was kind of the ray of hope in the movie. I had to set that.
A ray of new hope.
My God, man. You're incorrigible.
Right. All right, so we've discussed the original trilogy. We discussed 1, 2, and 3. We discussed number 7, episode 7, The Force Awakens. And we just watched Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which is a prequel, or a 0.5. It's like 3.5.
Well, according to Kennedy, who's now running the show at Disney/Marvel/Star Wars
/Pixar.
Kathleen Kennedy, I think, is the one in charge of Star Wars, and she said that that the trilogies that we're familiar with are following the Skywalker family. Okay, from the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and now the new trilogy. You may say, well, does that mean Rey's a Skywalker? No, but Leia is still there, Luke is still there, so this is still the Skywalker story.
The Skywalker Ranch.
Right, sure. The Rogue One story has nothing to do with the Skywalker story.
It's like a spin-off.
It's essentially a spin-off. These are just other stories. This is another story in that universe, but this is not part of the Skywalker story. We're not going to be connected to it in any way, shape, or form. At least that's what she said. So there theoretically should not be any connections whatsoever to any of the movies that have come out. This is its own thing. The only similarities is that it exists in the same world.
It's like the View Askew universe. I mean, it's just in the same universe.
Right. I mean, yes, we do see the Death Star. Yes, we do see Star Destroyers and Stormtroopers, but, and Rebellion and certain other characters, but these characters don't ever cross paths.
Right. And so do we know what
he
the
might
movie's
know
going to be about? Do you know the synopsis somewhat?
He might have a better idea than I do.
Well, and again, we're working from
what we know.
what the Rogue Squadron was. Canonically, which was basically their like SEAL team, if you will, ready to go at a moment's notice, and they're doing the most dangerous things. Luke and Wedge Antilles were part of the Rogue Squadron, so there's a long history to it. This iteration of it is,
but this would have been before,
right? It's preceding Luke's joining.
It's episode 0.
No, well, it's not part of that story. It just takes place before
3.5. We'll call it
right.
Episode 3.5. So this is bridging the gap between,
well, time wise anyway.
Right, between what was the last one even called? The
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope.
Not a bridge, but that's when it happens in the timeline.
Right. This is
They're
not
not
actually
connecting stories at all.
Well, I mean, there's certainly threads that run through it, but there's not. I mean, we've got like you said, the Death Star. We have Mon Mothma, who's making an appearance, as her younger self, or an actress who looks a lot like her.
Yeah, they did a good job with that.
They really did. That was great casting.
Maybe it's all CGI. No, I'm just kidding.
I believe it. That's why I looked at you for a second there. I'm like, do you know something I don't?
No.
No. At its core, what it is, it's a heist film.
Which is what? Explain the premise. I mean, do we know the?
Oh, okay. So
that are you guessing or are you sure?
We know this is happening.
Okay, I don't know. I haven't done any research on it.
Yeah. Well, I spent the better part of the day actually just making sure I had my head wrapped around what I was seeing, because it is just a teaser trailer, so we don't get to see a lot except a few of the high spots, and sort of the loose plot of the story. We know that there's this rogue character, and she's somehow recruited by the rebellion to do a thing for them.
Like Ocean's 11. Each one's going to have its own expert.
I got that vibe. They had that shot of her whole team.
Right. I remember.
Which seemed to be like this ragtag group of guys, So they're going on a suicide mission, it looks like. So they got people that they could probably do without. Not any of the actual rebel soldiers, but people who had a certain skill set, maybe were inclined to thievery, inclined to espionage, that sort of thing. And
people with a certain set of skills.
But I'm not Irish.
You're upset that you missed that one.
I am.
Okay. Point for me. And I drink.
Point.
I thought that was mine.
I'm taking it. I set it up for you and you smashed it.
Okay.
So, we have them on this mission to recover the plans to the Death Star.
Possibly.
It looks like it. I mean,
probably.
In all likelihood, that's the mission. Break into the Death Star, steal the plans, make it back home alive.
Okay.
Which sets up Luke and them when they.
Yeah, when the Rogue Squadron attacks the Death Star and knows its weakness, this is the reason they do, because they have that awesome 3D map that shows the vent, and if you have experience at shooting womp rats, then that's about your uncle.
Yeah.
And so that's the premise. And I know when we just watched it, the whole topic again of the Mary Sue issue came up again.
Yeah.
Right?
So right now, since the trailers come out, there's apparently been, a bit of a critique, if you want to call it that. Really, another badass female character again. And there has been a pattern here. I mean, they even all look alike. If you look at Padme or Natalie Portman to Carrie Fisher to Daisy Ridley and now to Felicity Jones, they all kind of look alike. They have brunette hair. They have kind of the same body type, and they're all these little feisty fighter types. It just seems a little too convenient for some people. I right away did not pick up on that. I was just watching it for what it was, and I'm completely new to what Rogue One is. But it has come up that yet again we have another Mary Sue type. You know, here she is, you know, coming across as another badass. You know, fighting single-handedly like all these stormtroopers and doing all this awesome stuff. In fact, there was even some people that criticized the last shot, that it looked too much like Katniss from the Hunger Games. People were very vocal about that too. So there have been some rumblings just from this trailer from that perspective of her character. Everything else looks great. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to say about the trailer itself because it's all new stuff, and I'm really in the dark, and I like being in the dark. You know, I like being in the dark when I go into a movie. I mean,
you're a lights off kind of guy.
I'm a lights off kind of guy. You know, let the magic happen.
Socks on too.
But like I said, everything I saw seemed cool and everything. But you know, now that I know what the critics are saying, or these fans that are upset with the trailer, I see where they're coming from, because it is kind of like, okay, well, yeah, you're right. We have another badass female.
I almost feel like it's a bit of a meme at this point, though. That okay, it's a Star Wars film with a female lead.
Yeah.
Let's dig up the Mary Sue trope again and beat her over the head with it.
And they're doing it. You know, I mean, if she is in fact the leader of the group, or if she gets most of the face time, that could be a problem.
Well, I think that was just a cut of the trailer, though, because we know it's a team.
Well, yes, and that's what I'm saying, and I think that's why people are getting a little bit out of shape, because the trailer paints it a certain way. And I mean, not everybody knows it's a team. I mean, it's a team because they sent publicity stills and pictures out, and people saw them, but not everybody saw them. And if they did, they probably don't remember seeing them.
We've had issues with people who are cutting the trailer for sure.
Yeah. So again, you know, if you're one of those people that says, you know what, I'm really tired of all these, you know, hot badass young women being, you know, the hero that saves the day. I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong, but is that just the Star Wars thing? Is that just what they're going to do now? Just, you know, keep it just being this Mary Sue type, or is it just misleading in the trailer, and you know, maybe the movie won't be that way at all. I don't know. I mean, like I said, when I saw the trailer, it looks fun. You know, it was cool seeing the shots and some of the new characters. It looks good. I'm not, you know, jumping up for joy, but it looks good. You know, I'm definitely going to watch it.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm excited that we got to see it finally, and that we'll get to see the film in December. But I'm not super enthused. I'm definitely gonna watch it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to, like, you know, backtrack, you know, or backpedal on the film at this point. I mean, all we've gotten is this teaser, and like you said, some of the press photos. So it's Star Wars. It exists in that world. I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah,
there's no question. The Mary Sue thing, I got it in The Force Awakens a little bit. I could see, like, people like Max Landis made that point, and he got in trouble for it really badly.
Yeah. Don't dare go against Star Wars.
Yeah, apparently that's just.
Then I have a complaint. A minor complaint about this one. To me, and I know the setup is, okay, Star Wars was originally done in the 70s. Mm-hmm. So here we are in 2000s, and we're doing a prequel. So my only concern about this is that we're going to go back to doing a prequel for a movie that happened in the 70s. So the technology that they did in that movie is not as advanced as our technology now. You know? So I'm just kind of worried that everything that we do is going to be... It's kind of like the TV show Enterprise going back to the prequel of Star Trek. You get me? Because like the shot of the ATT Walker, when it definitely, like, it moves towards, I think, Daisy Ridley or somebody, Ray, or whoever the girl is, Felicity, and it moves, and it moved a lot quicker than the ATT in the original trailer, and it even had that Cylon laser thing. It's 2000, not 1977.
I'm just kind of surprised you know what Cylons are.
Oh yeah, I know. But you get me.
I get it.
I hope you're right. I hope they don't tinker too much with the aesthetics, and that's the thing.
That cinematically they look too advanced.
Yeah,
and
I see where you're coming from, but remember, this is not a prequel of any story. This is its own story. It just takes place in that time.
Right, but the technology should be on par with the movie.
Well, think about all the high-tech stuff. You know, and some people are going to say this. In the original trilogy, or not the original, but in the prequel trilogy, the technology was much more advanced.
Right.
And then they worked it into the story that after the Empire took over, the only thing the rebellion had access to were all these kind of busted up ships, and they kind of had to refurbish and everything. And so all the high-tech stuff kind of disappeared, and then it all went the way of the Empire. Now, when we saw the AT-ATs, we saw them in Empire Strikes Back. Who's to say that those were not also banged up versions of the AT-ATs, and the ones we're seeing in Rogue One are a newer version? It's, you know what I'm saying? It's very easy. It's very easy to explain it story-wise when it comes to that.
I could see that, and it being a big government project, and being like, okay, well, we built these big-ass things.
Yeah.
They were good in that fight, but
and now in Empire
moving
Strikes
them
Back,
makes them shitty because we got to transport them,
and maybe
break
in
them
the
down.
cold, they were slower in the cold.
You got to reuse the Sherman tanks, right?
That's exactly right. I mean,
And as far as like the key panels and all that stuff, it looks like even in Force Awakens, they pretty much kept the same artistic kind of vision for that. Everything was pretty consistent.
well, even Star Trek does that. You know, keeps things pretty consistent across
as far as the
films.
ships go, they did try and explain that they were actually much more technologically advanced before Episode 4. But once the Empire took over, everything was just like, it was really hard to find ships. It was really hard to find parts for those ships. Everything was kind of all patched together, and that's kind of the way the rebellion was working.
Okay.
I mean, we'll see if that's kind of how they were playing, because we're kind of in the mid. No, you're right, but we're kind of in that mid-range area between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. I don't know how many years there are, like 40 years or something between those. And I don't know specifically where in those 40 years this story takes place.
Yeah.
Probably closer.
Happen in 40 years. I mean, Sith happens.
Sith does happen, yes. But there's always hope. So I'm thinking it's closer to Episode 4, though, just because Mon Mothma looks... I mean, it just kind of has a feel that it's probably within 5 years of A New Hope, I think.
All right. I think that about does it, right? For Episode 8 for our discussion of Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So
and all of Star Wars.
Right.
Really, we ran the gamut.
Right. It was the whole Star Wars. So if you guys have any questions, comments, complaints, or if you want to add on to our discussion, go ahead and comment below, like, subscribe. You can follow us on Facebook, THYD Show on Facebook, and we're on Twitter. We're all admins of the Facebook. But any comment you do on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, we're all going to see it anyway. So, again, thank you very much for joining us, and see you next time.
Bye
everybody.